Hi, I'm Mana Moini, and you're listening to the Humanity Podcast. Welcome back to the Humanity Podcast. I'm your host, Mana Moini. I cannot believe it's the season 2 season finale. This season, I really wanted to focus on being kind to ourselves. It felt like a topic that I needed to work on. I didn't know how it would be received, but as the season kicked off and the episodes started, more and more of you reached out letting me know that the topic of being kind to yourself is something that you're also working on, and that the conversations being had on the podcast around being kinder to yourself, embracing your authentic self, and celebrating your journey really resonated with you guys. As we close the holiday season and the year, I know that some of us are challenged more than ever to be kind to ourselves. Did you set New Year goals and resolutions at the beginning of the year? I did. Did you accomplish them? I didn't. Not all of them. It's the end of the year now, and I know a lot of you can relate when I say that these last few weeks of the year become really reflective, sometimes emotional, and a lot of times we may not be exactly where we thought we would be. Most of us didn't accomplish all of the goals. Of course, there are things that I wanted to accomplish this past year that didn't happen or didn't happen fast enough. And my first reaction was to, be hard on myself, get down on myself, to feel like I should have done better. But I actually wanted to challenge myself and challenge all of us to look at it in a different way. Let's not be so hard on ourselves if we don't accomplish every goal in the time that we set or by the end of the year. I heard someone say that setting goals and having possibilities is a luxury. The fact that we are in the present moment and are able to set goals is a blessing in itself. Setting goals is important, and usually at the beginning of the year, many of us set intentions or resolutions for the upcoming year. But it's also really important to understand that the measure of success can also be found in the hard work and the determination that one puts forward in the journey toward the goal. And sometimes that might mean that you don't accomplish the goal in the timing that you thought. And that doesn't mean that it's a failure or that you didn't accomplish it. It just means that the journey looks a little bit different than you thought. And I think if we're able to revamp how we look at it, we're going to be able to be a lot kinder to ourselves. Progress really starts with one single step. And sometimes the hardest thing is to take that first step. I think having grace for yourself and showing yourself kindness is also based on the understanding that you put your best foot forward, and sometimes things may take a little longer. Sometimes they may not play out the way you thought that they would, but that doesn't take anything away from you. Someone once told me this, and I'll never forget it. They said, "Remember that what you build depends on what you end from the past." If there are situations that need to come to an end, an unclear relationship, the wrong friendship, a business situation, clear those out so you can make room for accomplishing the goals you want and that you're fully aligned with. I was recently speaking to a friend about the new year and resolutions, and she recommended that I look into Simon Sinek. He's an author and speaker on business leadership. One of the topics that Simon speaks on is goal setting, specifically setting goals that are purpose-driven versus always being metric-driven. He emphasizes that there's nothing wrong with setting goals as long as we understand the purpose or destination we're trying to reach. A lot of times metrics keep us stuck in that feeling of, we didn't accomplish this goal if we didn't meet the metrics. But if goals are purpose-driven, then we're able to appreciate and understand the journey that we're taking to get there. Simon also talks about the importance of having milestones so that we're able to track our progress. These milestones allow us to change course or redirect if we need to get to our final destination. Now, Simon's work is primarily focused on business examples, but I really think that this whole theory is an important way to look at life goals too. Life is a long journey, Our big goals can be tough to accomplish, but really, if we have milestones along the way and adopt this milestone mindset, it's much easier for us to put in the work and to stay motivated and to be able to track our progress along the way. For example, in today's world, we measure the success of a new project by the amount of followers we get, the newsletter signups we get, and all these things that are all metric driven. But really, are we still aligned with the purpose that's behind the reason we launched the project? With this podcast, for example, I may not have the millions of followers yet, but am I making the impact I sought out to on people's lives, on even one person's life? Now, it's okay if milestones are metric driven, and sometimes they will and should be. But if milestones are rooted in the purpose of the goal, you're able to celebrate the small wins more often. When I look at the purpose versus metrics of this podcast, I know that I'm aligned to my purpose of driving change and spreading positivity and kindness through the content. The numbers will follow in due time. So when you think about this past year, there may be a goal that you may not have accomplished in its entirety. But were there any milestones along the way that you did accomplish? And how did those milestones set you up for future success toward the goal? Sometimes it's hard to understand why you didn't accomplish everything in the way or timing you thought you would. How many of you have said, "But I worked so hard"? I think when we work hard, it's not always easy to understand why the reward may not always come in the form that you think it will. I've always been a hard worker. My mom is one of the hardest workers I know, and it's something I learned from watching her growing up. I can't say that I've always accomplished things in the timing that I thought I would, and over the years, I've been hard on myself about that, and it's something that I want to rewire this year. I don't want to look at it that way going into next year. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind as we move into next year and continue our journey is the power of your mindset, especially when you're struggling to meet a goal or finding the motivation to keep going. How you speak to yourself is so important. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is the fact that the word mind-body, as in mind-body health, is one word. And that's because mind-body health truly reflects an intersection of where your mental and your physical health come together. When you work on one part, it impacts the entire pie. That said, I think a lot of times in life, what we tell ourselves really makes a difference in what we can do and how we show up. For example, like when you're in the gym and you think you can't lift a certain weight, it's your mind blocking you most of the time. How many of you have been there? I know I do it all the time. A lot of times when you try to lift that weight and you think you can't, you realize, oh, you actually can. And so the power of your mindset is really, really important. And most of the time, that mindset will allow you to do things, especially with your physical body, that you didn't think you could. The same goes for achieving goals and hitting those milestones. What you tell yourself and how you speak to yourself will make all the difference in the journey. So if you haven't accomplished a goal, reframe your mindset into thinking, what have I accomplished? What did it look like? And how will all of this help set me up to continue toward my destination? A critical part of setting and accomplishing goals is believing in yourself and surrounding yourself with the right people. My guest this second half of the season, Anthony Allen, spoke a lot about loving yourself and being your own champion. It's critical that you know the value that you bring to the table and that you truly are one of one. And if you're surrounded by people that are forcing you to dim your light or don't understand the value that you bring, then you need to get up and go sit at a different table. Because I promise you, there are people out there who will see you and they will embrace you and they will magnify your light because they believe in you. There may be people who don't believe in you, but show them what it's like to believe in yourself. It's a privilege to be in your life, not a right. My other guest this second half, Jeff Aggie, shared probably one of my favorite quotes this season. He said, "A candle loses nothing if it lights another," meaning being supportive of others takes nothing away from you. There's room for you and for someone else at the same table because most often you're bringing different ideas to that same table. And so I really, really encourage us to be the light and set the example of support for others to follow. Know that sharing your wisdom or your love takes nothing away from you in this world. One thing I hear a lot is, "Thank you for seeing me." Or some will say, "You see people, you can tell when I'm down." I'm so touched when people share that with me. There's a quote that says, "The healer's gift is her own wound." I can see people struggling. I can see people going through things sometimes without them having to say a word, because I myself have been there. And I think when you have that understanding, it creates empathy. You can give people grace, you can be there for people. And I think we're at a place in our society where we're becoming more and more self-consumed, and we're not taking the time to understand others. As we're moving into 2025, there's a lot of unknowns and people are struggling. And so if we can take a minute out of our day to show kindness, to send a "how are you" text, to give somebody a compliment, we can be the love that the world wants to see. We can be the love that the world needs now more than ever. As I wrap up here are 3 important reminders. Trust in the unknown and the bigger plan. We don't know how it'll all play out, but that's part of the fun. Number 2, you'll never get this present moment back, so enjoy it. And number 3, let go and look forward in gratitude. Thank you so much for the support over the past year and 2 seasons. I can't wait to share what's next with you all. We are going to grow this community and continue to spread light, love, and kindness in this world. Humanity, it's a place where everyone belongs. Thank you for being on this journey with me.